呢几十根筋的，有两三公分长的一个面积，有的筋线、胃线都断的断啊，碎的碎，所以呢，这些龙袍呢，因为年深月久啊，可能经过风化以后呢，都破了。那么修复这件龙袍呢，按照我们各式的工艺要求，经过了我们一个小组去了4个人一个小组修了要差不多1个多月，把它修复成功。
Even under close scrutiny, it's hard to see any signs of repair. Today, there are fewer than 100 working Kuso weavers in Suzhou. There's a private Kuso workshop in the west of Suzhou, whose products used to win international awards. It's now the main supplier of Suzhou Kuso fabrics. Wenwan Kang, the manager, has been working in the trade for over 20 years. He's trained many of Suzhou's most skilled weavers. Kosu is special, not only because it was used in producing the dragon robes, but also because it represented a major advance in Chinese weaving techniques. A great deal of work has been put into preserving it. At the forefront of this effort has been the China Cultural Heritage Foundation. In 2008, Geng Ying, chairwoman of the CCHF, visited Suzhou to inspect the current state of Kuso weaving. It was at his workshop that Geng Ying, the chairwoman of the CCHF, tried using a loom as a way of understanding the complexities and hard work involved in Kuso weaving. The experience taught her just how complex is the process of weaving Kuso fabrics. The material used in making Kuso fabrics is Suzhou silk. It's used in two ways, either as the warp or as the weft. The warp is vertical and the weft is horizontal. Depending on how they're combined, any number of different fabrics can be produced. The weaver first twists the hair-thin silk together. 3 pieces of thin silk are twisted into one. These are then twisted again into pairs. So, a finished thread is in fact 6 intertwined pieces of silk. Every thread is twisted by hand. How tightly they're twisted relies entirely on the weaver's experience. But the threads are still not ready for use. Before work can start, the thread needs to be wound onto a spool. To do so, the weaver arranges the warp bundles on the turning shelf on the left. Then, by pulling the rope, he turns the wheel and winds the warp onto the small thread spool. The primitive winding machine still works today, but with time, more efficient equipment has been developed. As the machine runs, the more than a dozen warp bundles revolve and the thread spool grows thicker. This modern equipment is more efficient and less labor-consuming. The finished thread spools are taken to another room. At first sight, the room looks like it contains some sort of musical instrument, since the wooden shelves with the parallel threads look like the chords on a great organ. The warp needs straightening before it can be woven. This is done by the machine in this room. Although it's large, it's quite easy for a single person to handle it. When it's in motion, hundreds of thread spools will revolve, straightening the threads. Individual threads go through a row of tight comb gears. But then a strange sound can be heard, like porcelain. The pendulums of different lengths are all made of white porcelain. They're suspended on threads. It's the pendulums that produce the clear sounds. The threads passing through them are naturally straightened by the weight. The pendulums seem to add a unique sense of Chinese culture to the kosu weaving process. Obviously, straightening the threads is an essential process before they can be used in weaving. The warp must run through the entire piece of fabric, while the weft doesn't. The weft can cross the whole warp or be cut off, depending on the design. When a vertical line is reached in the design, the weft ends. The technique is known as continuous warp and broken weft. It's one of the most important jobs of the weavers to control the thin weft. To do so, they use boat-shaped tools called shuttles. These are around 10 centimeters in length and carved from bamboo or wood. They carry different threads and have dozens of standards depending on the size. Each shuttle carries a different color of thread. Depending on how many colors a piece of kuso fabric needs, there are that many shuttles. This workshop uses more than 10,000 different colored threads. There's a movable container in the middle of the shuttle. The weaver, by turning the handle, can wind the dyed thread into the container and then insert it into the shuttle.